We love the top of the world highway, and we were excited to finally arrive in Alaska. We stayed in a series of Alaska State recreation areas as we worked our way north to Fairbanks, staying at Moon Lake, Harding Lake, and Chena Lake, which is just outside of North Pole, Alaska.
We're at Moon Lake, so there's a first for that, but there's also a first for the fact that Moon Lake is rising, which we don't understand why. We had neighbors here last night, and they had to move their trailer yesterday afternoon, and then this morning they had to move out because their site was completely flooded. And the water is still coming in. Paddling in Alaska. Moon Lake. These are the small hills behind us, and around the bend to the north are some rather large mountains, which we'll get later on. Hi, Bella. Still Moon Lake. It is 10 minutes after 1 in the afternoon, Alaska time. It seems to never get dark here. You have like twilight in the middle of the night, and that's about as dark as it gets. Very beautiful. Very quiet.
From Susan's Journal, Monday, July 22nd. Our stop for 2 nights is Moon Lake Recreation Area. It was quite busy last night, but almost no one here tonight. We went to bed last night at around 8 o'clock Alaska time and slept until 8 this morning. We enjoyed a very lazy, quiet morning. Rick was able to cook breakfast outside. We then went for a kayak ride around the lake, but it was not very big and there's a lot of algae. Still, it was beautiful with the mountains around. No wildlife today, but we did see a couple of caribou and a mom and baby moose yesterday. After dinner, we went for another kayak ride. The evenings are so beautiful here. No wind, mild temperatures, and sunshine well until after 9 o'clock. Tomorrow we are moving on into Alaska up the Delta Junction, which is the end of the Alaska Highway.
Our campsite is through the woods to the right of that shiny roof. We can see it through the woods from our campsite, but it's separated by a bunch of trees. So it's Tuesday, July 23rd today, and we're headed off to Quartz Lake, which maybe is a good thing because the Moon Lake keeps rising higher and higher. We actually now have a waterfront site, but there's some areas that the water is completely over the road, but it's shallow, so it's no big deal.
From Susan's Journal, Friday, July 26th. Boy, what a week we have had. We left Moon Lake after 2 nights and went up the Alaska Highway past Delta Junction to Big Delta Historic Site to dump our tanks, only to find the site closed down. So we headed to Quartz Lake for a few days, hoping we could make it with the tanks. We found the sites at Quartz to be awful, very sloped or uneven. Back to the drawing board, and we found another state recreation area not too far up the road. Harding Lake Recreation Area is where we found a dump site for $10 and finally some water, so we stayed Tuesday night and Wednesday night. We had a lovely conversation with some campers from Moon Lake and had a very nice paddle on the lake. We came upon a young bull moose munching on the grasses and watched him for about 5 minutes. The moose finally got the better of Bella and she started to bark, and Mr. Moose wandered off.
Chena Lakes, well, Chena Lake, just outside of North Pole, Alaska, just south of Fairbanks. It's 6:45 on Thursday evening. We thought we'd come out and enjoy a quiet evening of paddle before the weekend activity. Sunset tonight is 11:43 p.m., Sunrise tomorrow is, I think, 4:23, something along that line.
Continuing from Susan's journal. We made the decision to go to Chena Lake a day early because we had a service appointment for the truck on Friday and we didn't want to feel rushed. We came into the area and found that 2 of the 3 lake loops were closed for construction, but we did find a very nice spot. Then we went to get water, only to find out that the pump in our area was hard to operate and the water looked quite brown. So we drove around looking and finally found a nice pump with clean water up the road at the river loop. After 3 round trips on a very bumpy, dusty road, we were all set. We took a nice walk, had dinner, and went for a kayak ride on the lake. Back home, we got the visit from the Park Service, only to be told, sorry, you have to move, because our section was closing for the continuous construction. So we packed up what we could Thursday night, drove to the river loop, and found the site that we wanted, and dropped off a couple of chairs. This morning, bright and early, we hooked up the trailer and moved over to the river loop. We finally feel settled in by the river. We then left and went sightseeing before our service appointment. We went to a pipeline viewing area north of Fairbanks where you could walk right up to the pipe and get a sense of the size. There were several interesting placards to explain the building and maintenance of the pipeline. We found it very interesting. Next, we headed back to Fairbanks and found a brew pub for lunch, then on to the dealership to get the truck serviced. We spent our waiting time walking through Walmart and Home Depot because it was raining, and we left Bella at the trailer. After a stop at Safeway Liquor for more wine and a quick trip down to Santa's Village to take photos for August, we went back home. Continuing from Susan's journal. We spent several nice days at Chena Lake after a pretty rough start with the campsite and the water issues. We kayaked the lake, which was very pleasant. Sunday was rainy off and on, so we went into Fairbanks and explored. We visited the visitor center, which was very informative, walked around by the river in the downtown area, visited the Antler Arch and several memorial areas. We visited with some musher dogs, and they were both very cute and very interested in Bella. Susan's Journal. On Monday, we left the Fairbanks area and headed down the Parks Highway to Denali. After check-in, I did the laundry, and we took a walk over to the bus depot to check on things for the early morning on Tuesday. We had a very nice barbecued ribs dinner outside and got everything ready for Tuesday morning. Our bus tour, the Tundra Wilderness, left at 6:40 in the morning, so we were up and getting ready around 4:45. We took Bella for an early walk, and we packed up and walked over to the bus depot. Our tour was wonderful. The tour guide, the driver, was very good. He was very passionate about the park and the wilderness. As we went into the park, the driver described the boreal forest trees and shrubs and explained various things about the park. We saw a couple of moose grazing. Further on, we saw some caribou and then a rare sighting of a Canadian lynx. He or she was at the back of the bus, and so were we. So we got the best sight in the house for the up-close and personal encounter. It was a magnificent sight to watch the lynx stroll across the road and come up alongside of us, and then finally into the bush. As we went further into the park, the views opened up and the terrain changed to more open tundra. We saw several more caribou and a small herd up on a ridge. We also saw quite a lot of grizzly bears, some closer to the road, some with young cubs. One mother and cub were eating, and the mother wandered off, and the baby went running across to catch up to her. It was very cute. We saw only 3 doll sheep high up on a ridge, but we saw them. Rick got a lot of good photos of all the wildlife in the surrounding mountains and valleys. We even got to see the mountain for a brief time. It was partly cloudy most of the day, but a few areas opened up, and twice we were able to get a view of Denali. Most tourists did not even get that. We were hoping that as we travel down the highway to our next campground, which is about 100 miles south, we will have more views. After leaving Bella for almost 8 hours, she was very happy to see us. We took her for a nice walk and sat and relaxed and talked about how wonderful our day had been. We drove into the business district, which is just outside the park, for gas, and then home to fix dinner. We took showers and had an early night. We were very tired after such a big day, but we both felt like we had celebrated our 50th anniversary in a big way. Now we are looking forward to moving on to Denali State Park and places beyond.
Next stop is coming right up ahead, right at the top of the hill here. This is Polychrome Overlook. So welcome to Polychrome Overlook, everyone. There are no restrooms here at Polychrome Overlook.